Good morning, Kenji.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good, good.
I'm glad to see that this is actually in your booth now.
Yes.
So this has become a bit of a SEMA tradition as of late. For the past couple of years, Sakamoto-san from Garage Active has been flying his cars very fancily from Japan to the US for the SEMA show, and he's been displaying it in the Tread Pass for the past couple of years.
Yes.
How did you eventually convince him to display his car here at the GReddy booth?
I didn't really need to convince him. I think Toyo Tires already had, the two R32s, two different cars, back to back, and I think they requested something other than 32, possibly 33. But since Sakamoto-san is still working on the 33, he wanted to still come out to the SEMA, but 32 was like the only option at the moment for dry carbon setup. So we started talking pretty much towards end of last year, almost like, not too long after SEMA, that, maybe we could do a collab, booth, since we're gonna be distributing Garage Active products, stocking, and we could have your car in the booth. And, for the past 2 years, I've been helping them, with the logistics of the past two cars, receiving them and sending it back to Japan. And those two cars were here for Carne, so it had to go back within a year. And last year, he even sent it right back to go to Auto Salon, so it didn't stay.
Yeah, so because he's been doing all this stuff for the past couple of years, he's promoting his brand and his dry carbon and also
and
wet carbon
parts
parts and all the other products. The question is, like, how do you actually get these products? Do you order them from Japan? Well, you are actually distributing them in the US.
So we're going to be stocking more and more. We were getting little by little, but maybe not the big kits like these, but he makes a lot of different accessory pieces, few different, lip spoilers, side skirt for, the stock bumpers and stock body. So those pieces are like the rear seat deletes, the mirrors, the air panels, and a few other bits that you can see that's displayed here. And so we're gonna be promoting that. We're gonna be listing in our product lineup parts list and distribute it out to our dealer network.
So the big difference between this and the past two other builds that we've seen is that it's not HKS powered. Right. It's actually GReddy powered this time.
Yeah.
So you guys actually have your complete engine in here. Can we take a look at that? Yeah, so we'll take a look at that, and then if you want to show me the engine on the stand, then we can kind of go over what makes it very special.
So we introduced our RB28 2.8 liter stroker complete engine package last SEMA, and that's what we put in Dai's car last year in the R33, and we've been working on it, and a few minor tweaks to update for this setup, and the same type of material, but the crankshaft, we went with 79 mil stroke. The usual 2.8 stroker kits are 77.7, but since we are keeping the stock bore to maintain the wall thickness of the original brand new block, and we don't want to go any bigger if we don't have to, so that we could maintain that wall thickness to prevent from possible cracking and just weakening the block. So with that, if you would go 77.7, it's barely 2.7. And to get that 2.8, we went with 79, and seems to be working pretty good. We're going to be really dialing this in after the show, and the whole plan with this car is to have Sakamoto track this next year. So possibly like event like Texas 2K and a few other. So because this wasn't brought in for Carne, it doesn't have to go back, and we're going to keep this and really put it out to drive this. And we have this complete engine package to really show the performance, and we'll be doing few different development on the turbo side as well, and currently it's a single turbo setup. This is our new GP78R turbocharger, but me and Sakamoto-san kind of like the idea of maybe twin turbo setup. Yeah.
It is huge. So then, this was actually imported then to the U.S. Like this car.
Yeah,
this is staying here.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. And
so even though it was air freighted for this show, it's going to stay. And he doesn't have any intentions of sending back to Japan anytime soon.
that is so cool that he's actually going to use it for standing mile racing and roll racing and all the different types of racing that would benefit from having this there. So my question to you is, I know this is special in that this is a GReddy US project. The engine is. What makes this different than something that's built in Japan? This is actually built in the US.
Yeah, well, you know, the complete engine package, the block and the head are brand new from Japan, but everything inside is all made in US, and we utilize all the technology, the material that's accessible here, down to, you know, the material of the crankshaft, the rod bolts, ARP.
Yeah, can we take a look at let's take a look at the engine stand and then we'll go back to that. So this is
Our complete crate motor right here.
it'll kind of show up something like this.
Yeah, even down to these stands.
Oh.
So it'll be in a crate already on the stand like this. So this is the actual product that we're ready.
So brand new block, brand new head.
Right. Then we do CNC porting, all new valve train, super tech, but we get them custom made and we just spec it out and billet cams. And then down here, the block, we got the full counterweight cranks, billet cranks, custom rods, pistons. And what we do also are coating the piston, hard anodize for the top heat barrier, and also anti-friction on the skirts, and DLC coating on the lifters. So there's a lot of things that goes on to this, and what makes it a little bit more special than what you can get possibly from Japan is the process of like machining. We use CNC honing machine where we could program the cross hatches, maintain good oil retention grooves, and then something that we could really make it so that the braking is more simple, faster, to make sure the ring seals properly, crankshaft as well. We get it from a very reputable crankshaft manufacturer. It's actually made by Cali's. We don't have anything to hide with there. But from that, we use the CMT machine to properly balance. And we're able to balance it every 1,000 RPM and make sure that even at 10,000 RPM, the force that's being applied to the journals are almost the same as 1,000 RPM. And we found that straight out of the box, we're seeing up to about 150 pounds of pressure being applied to the journals at 10,000 RPM, and we balance that out to almost 7. Our target is about 6 to 7. So you can see that difference in the force, and usually people go, okay, I got a stroker crank, let's put it together and just slap it on, and not knowing exactly what kind of range it's really balanced at. So we're able to do all that with today's recent technology, machinery and equipment, and we'll go down even when we deck the block. We'll check the surface finish. We'll ultra scan the cylinder, every cylinder wall, to make sure they're all even. RB28, not on the 05U block, but N1 block, usually it's known for core shift, and each cylinders are slightly shifted, and you can see that front to back, the wall thickness are a little bit different. And since we're keeping it OEM bore, about 86.12 is what we go out to. So, we barely take out the material, but on certain blocks, we've seen that there's so much shift, and people will go out to like a 87 mil bore. You're taking that much more on one end, and then it's prone to crack. So there's a lot of things that we've been testing and checking and researching, but probably 3.5 years in the making. And we're starting to deliver some of these. These are actually sold already. So this is ready to go after SEMA.
Oh, this is a customer's engine.
This is sold, even the 2J over there. So we introduced it last SEMA. We've been getting inquiries, but we're trying to kind of perfect everything and make sure all the packaging's done, even down to the engine stands. And we also have a crate. So these are starting to ship out as we speak, like right after SEMA.
Couple of things. So you're really benefiting from the racing industry that we have in the US versus in Japan.
Right. So some of these technology even comes down to aerospace, right, with the coating and the material, and goes into motorsport, and it's trickling down to the aftermarket, and we're able to access that. And our engine builder, Scott, he's here today, but probably walking in, but we've done a lot of research together, and I'm learning as I go too, and because there's so many new things, and it's like, oh, we're going to do this, we'll do that, we'll address this. So we have a lot of experience with Ken Gushi's program with the 2J build and inline 6, and we tried out a few different things and noticed how the valves and the valve seats and the spring, and we used to run dual springs on the valve train, but now it's custom conical springs, so prevent from coil bind and things like that. So every little things, down to the cap bolts for the cams. OEM one tends to bind, so we made a stud kit even for the cam caps. So every little detail's been addressed from top to bottom.
So essentially, what you've done is you've done something that anybody can do to put all these parts together from all these different manufacturers and all the processes, but you've done the homework for somebody else to do it.
Yes.
Because you could go out as an individual and buy all these parts and get all these treatments done and do their own research to get it to work, but you've done that.
Right.
So then, is there a world now where you're doing this stuff and you would sell this to the Japanese?
Yes.
So it's like GReddy US selling this engine back to Japan.
Right. Yeah.
Has that happened?
And we're getting inquiries, yeah. And we introduced this last SEMA, and some of their overseas customers, like in other part of Asia and even Europe, are inquiring about it, and that's Japan-sized territory. So, we're able to kind of supply that. And one, key point of how we prepare these blocks and the engine, when we build these engines, usually people, okay, I'm building one complete engine, those order one set of pistons, one set of rods, one set of valves and springs, and that's all they have to work with. But to make sure everything is well balanced, measured, spec'd out, we order enough to build 30 blocks, and we'll line up all the parts like springs. We have hundreds of springs, and we'll test each one of them and then make sure they're all matched for this one block. So, usually you only have one set to work with. We're able to, make sure to measure and, match up, even down to the pistons. We have enough for 30 engines, rods as well, because they're custom made rods, so we're able to coat them and measure everything, weigh them, and then match it up with the proper piston sets, rods, so you don't have to do that anymore. We do all the hard work for you.
Yeah, it really is labor intensive for you to do this, but so how much is something like this right now as it sits?
The retail is $52,000 as is, so it's not cheap, but we've done all we can, and probably the best what we could access right now today.
What do you think in terms of power-wise?
Power-wise, it has its limitation because we are still using the OEM block. So it's like, well, the components could handle over 1,500 horsepower, but because of the block, OEM block tends to twist after maybe 1,200 horsepower. So other than that, then you could get the block brace, like PRP. So we've been working with PRP on some of the trigger kits, but PRP in Australia offers brace. But for now, we're saying, 11, 1200 is probably the max that you could really push this. But the components that we're using, like the connecting rods and the piston, the wrist pin for the piston, and the crankshaft could handle well beyond that. But it's the OEM components that we're still using. So eventually, we'll look into going beyond that and bracing it. And, there's a few different options coming down the road where, different blocks is being, got to be accessible. So, right now we'll go from, anywhere from 800, 900 up to about 1200. And then that's, what we're going to do with this car.
What do you think for this one, in this configuration, how much does this make?
It's going to be, 1,000 to 1,100.
To the wheels.
Yeah. And then we're going to start running it, testing it. And one thing that Mr. Sakamoto doesn't have any experiences with is ethanol. So with E85, we could do more aggressive boost, more aggressive tune, and still keep the reliability in the of the engine.
It's not very popular to run E85
yeah,
in
they don't
Japan.
have access to that over there.
Yeah.
Some guys are starting to import, I think, but I think ethanol is pretty common out here, and then we could get motorsport grade ethanol like we've been using in drifting, like the Ignite Red, and so we're going to be tuning that with Motec, and we also added drive-by-wire so we could do traction control, launch control, and a few things that we've updated since his past two cars for him to really enjoy the performance, and we could learn that together to see how far we could push. Some of the guys in like Australia and a few other guys that's really been doing the GTR tuning have a lot of knowledge already. But as far as the power plant, I think we have a really good package here. And since we introduced a whole new line of turbochargers, we're going to be testing out the single to twin turbo setup, and I think it's going to be fun next year.
So then, can you tell us a little bit about the body? What's different versus this?
The body itself with the carbon fiber, the dry carbon, is identical to his past two builds. It's just a new, different colorway. So the blue, there's a pretty unique story behind this as well. So when we started talking about, okay, well, let's do this collab build and put it in our booth, he was asking what color we should paint it. And it's kind of like shared with his first carbon GTR. I'm sure you've seen his very first one, which was the wet carbon, and it's blue. And also for GReddy, the first GTR ever to come to US was the GReddy RX R32 that came out in '95 for Battle of the Imports. And that was like the R&D test demo car that Trust built in early '90s and was really popular back in the day as GReddy RX, and did a lot of development. And Sakamoto-san and I, agree that blue will be the perfect color for the GReddy colorway, as well as his, kind of homage to first GReddy R32 that came out, and also his very first carbon GTR, which was blue as well. So
it's so good. The interior is really finished too.
I was pretty surprised with the brown leather interior, but we've been getting a lot of comments. Some might not like it, but with the whole brown finish, kind of gives that street luxury. That's what he was going for.
It smells so good in here. Yeah. It smells like a huge leather couch, because it is. This actually, honestly, updates the R32 dash. It's like it really was needed, because the R32 dash, as we know, they all bubble and they're all cracked and ugly.
Right.
This is actually really neat. I was getting a lot of comments. I posted a picture of this car.
I saw that.
And people are saying that the interior, they didn't realize it was all leather.
Yeah.
You know, and now you look at the finish up close, the stitching's really nice. So they did all this in Japan.
Yes, he has a guy that does all that for him. So even his other, first two cars, it was, suede, Alcantara, set up. So that was really nice as well.
I think this is the best one so far.
Yeah.
Because this is something that will probably last the test of time. You know, a lot of Alcantara and suede may not have as much durability in terms of wear, but like this feels nice and it just looks really, really premium.
Yeah, so his concept was more like the street car, and that's why he doesn't have the full carbon floor like the other two cars. So it's still carpet, but it still has the carbon rear seat delete. But for once we start tracking or racing this car, then few things gonna change. Obviously the wheel setup, and we'll be able to correct the camber. So this is kind of like a show spec where we got pretty aggressive camber to tuck in everything.
And this is a sequential also.
Yes, so this is still OS88 sequential transmission, but once we start putting big power and big boost and big power, and depending on the tires, we might have to change that to something like Samsonis, or we'll play around with that. But OS has been great with working with us on this setup, and they've been revising everything. So we'll see what kind of torque it could handle. So in a way, it's going to be another development car for us as well to really get out there on the racetrack and having fun along the way together with Sakamoto-san.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So cool. Well, thanks for showing us. I love this tradition every SEMA.
Yeah, last year after SEMA, or even leading into SEMA, I said maybe we need to take a break. And I said this a couple weeks ago as well after preparing these cars. But I don't know, something comes up and it's like, oh, okay, maybe I get that itch and come up with the idea that we all agree here at GReddy, and we pull it off. But it kind of leads into the following year. So like something like this, we'll go out and run the car, show the performance. And I think a lot of people that saw the Carbonara last year and the previous year don't get to see it afterwards, right? Then where is it the car? Is it running? Love to see that car, go down the track. So, some of the ideas like going to Ars Day, going to the shootout, going to the Texas 2K, it might not be the top contender, but I think just to show that it runs and something that's reputable, that with this type of build, to really show all the fans that he has, and GReddy fans as well, say, okay, well, we don't just build show cars to make them pretty. We are building something like this to really show the performance, so we need to get out there. And Sakamoto-san's really down to doing that.
Yeah, it's great. I love it. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you want to support us directly, go to LarryChenPrints.com. I print and sign every single one of these. This is the perfect gift, or it's the perfect piece of art for your wall.